Hi, Dr. Shook here. And this is going to be a 5-part video series. And in this video, this is video number 1, we're going to cover 5 things that you didn't know about hypothyroidism or your thyroid health. So number 1, the most common cause of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. It's actually an autoimmune process where the immune system is attacking your thyroid and it's causing the symptoms of hypothyroidism or low thyroid function. Now, this may or may not result in you having low thyroid hormone levels. Typically, if it progresses for a long period of time, the immune system attack against the gland will destroy the cells of the thyroid, and eventually your ability and capacity to produce thyroid hormone goes down. So that's a scenario where you would probably need to be on a thyroid hormone replacement for a long period of time. Now, the thing about this is that it's an autoimmune process. Okay, so we know that autoimmune processes, they go through 3 phases. The first phase of autoimmunity is silent, where your body makes these things called antibodies against your tissues. Those antibodies, what they do is they stick to the tissue and they tell your immune system that whatever that antibody stuck to needs to be destroyed. Okay, so it needs to go away. So I tell people they're like sticky notes. So 5 to 15 years before you even have symptoms, these antibodies are being produced against the tissue. So in this case, the thyroid. And in phase 2 of autoimmunity, that's where there's significant tissue destruction and the gland starts to become destroyed, and typically the person becomes symptomatic. Now, in this scenario, people may or may not see their doctor. They may feel bad. They may feel like it's just them getting older. They may attribute some of their symptoms to not sleeping well, or there's a lot of different excuses. You go to your doctor and they may not even check the thyroid, and they may say things like, well, this is you need to rest more, you need to exercise, you need to eat better. You know what, some of those things that might be true, and some of those things do affect thyroid physiology, but what you find is that with autoimmunity, this is where there's starting to be actually significant symptoms and tissue destruction. And then phase 3 of autoimmune processes is where there's major destruction of the tissue, and it's typically where it's diagnosed medically. And that's when a lot of times you're going to be on a thyroid hormone replacement, and it can be very progressed and the autoimmunity can have expanded. The thing to understand with Hashimoto's is that it's 9 out of 10 people that are hypothyroid, that the research tells us that 9 out of 10 people that have a hypothyroid diagnosis, so if you're taking a thyroid medication, you've been diagnosed as hypothyroid. Okay, so 9 out of 10 of those people, they have Hashimoto's, and that's the primary driver of their symptoms. And the thing about Hashimoto's is that it creates so many problems due to the inflammatory process that it creates. Aside from the fact that it's destroying the thyroid gland itself, all of these symptoms and problems that it creates, the inflammation from the autoimmunity creates, will cause you to feel like you don't have enough thyroid hormone. So it promotes the symptoms of hypothyroidism. Just the inflammation itself makes your cells less sensitive to the thyroid hormone. The inflammation can promote a stress response in your body, which will promote and stimulate the adrenal glands. The inflammation will wreak havoc on numerous systems. These inflammatory chemicals very easily cross the blood-brain barrier and can create problems with synaptic firing between the neurons of the brain, the nerve cells of the brain. It creates a number of problems. So when people say, well, I've got brain fog and all these other issues, the first place to look in hypothyroid cases, or when you have those symptoms, is to consider, is this a thyroid issue? That is one thing that most people don't know, and that's tip number 1 for you, and that is, most people that have hypothyroidism or thyroid issues, they don't realize that the primary driver of the process is Hashimoto's. And in that case, I'm going to tell you, if you're autoimmune with any autoimmune condition, you need to identify the drivers of the process. Now, a lot of people will try diets, and diets can be helpful because food proteins can be a big driver of autoimmunity. So are environmental compounds. We're finding things like BPA, which is bisphenol A, latexes, and numerous other environmental compounds that a lot of people and doctors used to think were inert, that they were not antigenic, they didn't stimulate the immune system, that now these things are very dangerous, and in some cases very much more dangerous for people that have Hashimoto's. So environmental compounds, and then we look for infectious triggers as well. So chronic infections create a lot of problems, and this will all affect your thyroid physiology and your body's ability to use the hormone that's there, and can create hypothyroid symptoms even if the labs are normal. And really, that's quite frequently what we find, is that people come in and they see us, and they just don't feel well. And maybe they felt good with their thyroid hormones at first, and then they stopped not responding well, and they're just looking for someone to help them investigate what's driving this process. And I'm going to tell you now, if you're autoimmune, if you do not address the autoimmunity, then there's a lot less likelihood that you're going to make significant improvements in the way you feel. And in addition to that, not addressing the autoimmunity, this is the thing, autoimmunity doesn't sit still. It's not stagnant. It moves, it progresses, it expands. So once your immune system stops seeing your thyroid or your TPO, which is the target tissue, the target enzyme, or thyroglobulin, it's another protein in the gland. Once your immune system stops seeing that as you, everything's on the menu. The rest of your body's tissues, your own T3, your own T4 can be attacked. The receptors of the cells can be attacked. There's a lot of different things. All these tissues you can expand, the autoimmunity will expand to other tissues. And like I said, remember there are 3 phases of autoimmunity. Stage 1 is silent. Stage 2 is where you start to get some symptoms. And then stage 3 is where there's significant loss of the organ or the tissue. Usually that's where it's diagnosed medically, and there's 70 to 90% of the tissue of the organ or tissue is damaged. So it's very significant, very progressed, and that's really you're very, very late in the game to make significant changes. So you want to try to catch this stuff in stage 1, right? When it's silent, if you can do that. So if you have one autoimmune condition, what I am an advocate of is going ahead and getting multiple tissue antibody tests, and that's one of the things that we'll order at a minimum for people to see where else is the autoimmunity, because we know that it comes in groups. So I just want to share, that's tip number 1. The cause of most hypothyroid symptoms is Hashimoto's, and it's an autoimmune condition, and there are different stages of the autoimmunity, and if you don't address it, you're going to have a much harder time recovering, and then you're also going to be allowing this thing to perpetuate and continue this autoimmune process, which can expand to other tissues and really create significant problems long term. So I'm Dr. Shook. I hope this helps you. I appreciate you guys. If you need anything, you have any questions, just let us know. But I look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks.